I want to share with you just another little devotional about our conscience. We sometimes think doing the big things, physically coming to the church and being a part of this and doing that, and we sometimes forget that sometimes the hardest work is dealing with getting a clear conscience. If you listen to 1 Timothy 1, 5 and 6, you get how much Paul emphasizes to young Timothy the importance of having a good conscience. He says, now the end, the purpose of the commandment, and this is whatever God wants us to do, is charity, love, true Christian love, out of a pure heart and of a good conscience and of faith unfeigned, unpretended faith, from those three things, some, having swerved, or not aiming at, have swerved aside, have turned aside unto vain jangling. Instead of preaching, instead of teaching, it's vain jangling. Just bang, 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 bang. Metal garbage can lids. Bang, bang, bang. Vain, purposeless. So to expand this, to explain this a bit, he says now, but the goal of our instruction, what I'm telling you to do, the goal of our instruction is love, agape love, pure, true Christian love, from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. For some men straying from these things have turned aside to fruitless discussions. Blah, 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 blah. Means nothing. So my translation from the Greek to emphasize that. So three things. If you have a fine-tuned conscience, you're not sinning against your conscience. You're not doing what you know is wrong, but nobody's looking. You can get by with it. You're sinning against your own conscience. You are burning it. You are scarring it. And that makes it lose its sensitivity. And the next time you do it, you can do it a little easier. This is like the drug addiction, where they can take a certain amount and they get a big high and it feels so good. But the next time they take the same amount, it doesn't do as much and they have to take more. And sin is like that. So what is the value of the conscience? Well, first of all, conscience warns you of sin. It is that still small voice that says, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't go there, you shouldn't do that. John 8:9. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience. These men had gathered together. The woman caught in the very act of adultery, brought to Jesus. You suppose she was in the act of adultery by herself? Why did they only bring her? This is pretty suspicious to me. This is something that was set up. And Jesus says, you who are without sin, cast the first stone. And he kneels and he starts writing. Somebody said he thought he was writing the sins of the people in the group in the dirt. But we don't know. But they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. She was guilty, but something suspicious about this whole thing. It had been a setup somehow. So she wasn't the only one guilty. In fact, all these men who were there with the stones recognized they were also guilty. Romans 2:15, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing them or excusing one another. The conscience is your sense of right and wrong. 1 Timothy 4:2, speaking lies in hypocrisy, play acting, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. So if you are seared with a hot iron, I had a terrible incident at school. A guy in the dorm room, and he didn't have a shirt on, and the other guy picked up the iron that was on the, nobody was using it, it was just sitting on the ironing board, and he went, aha, and the guy said, don't do that, and that made him do it, and he put it on, but they had been using the iron. And it wasn't on, but it was still hot. And the guy went, and then he said, oh, I'm so sorry, so sorry for being so stupid. But here was this triangle shape with the little white dots where the steam vents were, you see the whole thing. So I don't know what happened to that skin, probably peeled off, but if you are seared with a hot iron, that's branding you see. And it becomes a thick callus, and it doesn't, you can't feel it anymore, you see. So your conscience may be seared with a hot iron, but before you denied it, you knew what was wrong. It may be that you're past caring now because the conscience has been dulled by searing it, by doing the sin over and over again. The second importance about the conscience is it tells you of God. The world recognizes that conscience that warns of evil, but the Bible goes beyond that and says it's your conscience, that moral sense, that tells you of God, if you're listening to it, you see. John 1:9, that Jesus, that was the true light. Jesus was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Every man that cometh into the world, what does that mean? Every human man is anthropos, the word for not on-air male, it's just anthropos, human. Every human that comes into the world has been given a light by Jesus. I don't know specifically what that means, but light is the opposite of darkness. Darkness is spoken of as superstition, as misunderstanding of truth, not seeing the way things really are. Light lets you see things the way they really are. Christ is looking at every person that cometh into the world, and at some point gives them light. Well, that light is given to the conscience. Romans 1:19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, or to them, for God hath showed it unto them. We see here that the Maker is seen in his workmanship. Man is intelligent, man is moral. Who makes that? Oh, it came by accident in evolution. How do you accidentally get intelligence? How do you accidentally get morality? The sense of right and wrong. How could that come when you're eating one another for advancement? It's the conscience. And the third and last is that conscience condemns your heart. This is where we need to keep a clear conscience, keep a good conscience, because if we feel that condemnation, we just need to stop. Titus 1:15, unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, but even their mind and conscience is defiled. If you notice people who are comedians about raunchy topics, they see this raunch in everything because that's the way they live, it's the way they think. The Apostle Paul says, I'm telling my wife, she was communicating with the family, and one of the emojis she put down was, to her, a pile of chocolate pudding with eyes and a smile. She thought, well, that's nice because chocolate pudding is good. She's a pure-hearted person. To her, it was chocolate pudding. All the kids said, Mom, that's poop. She says, no, it wouldn't do that. Why would anybody put that for an emoji? So she had an unfortunate education today. Grandson Jude was interviewed on 59 News representing his robot team that is going to the world competition in Texas. I'm off the subject, but the idea, to pure, all things are pure. It's obviously a pile of chocolate pudding. So here's the fact of the matter. No one needs to convince you of being a sinner. Prove it to me. I don't need to. Your conscience already has. You know that you have done wrong. You know that within you. You know that your life is not what God wants. Now, when you accept the teachings of your own conscience, then God sends someone to tell you what conscience would never know on its own. When you accept what God teaches inside your heart, he sends you someone to give you more. Jesus, God's Son, died for you because he loves you. He paid the penalty, not for his sin, but for yours. And the just died for the unjust. By trusting him to save you, faith in what he did, he will save you. The conscience will lead you in that. So don't damage your conscience.